Hello everybody, my name is Alex and welcome to another Civ 6 video. Today we are going to be doing a Gran Colombia strategy and tips. It's going to be a pretty short one, but hopefully if you're a new player or somebody that's not yet had a chance to play as Gran Colombia, you'll find a bit of help in this strategy video and a few tips. By the way, if you play on deity, you're probably better than me at the game, so leave your tips down in the comments as well because it'd be cool to compare strategies. So the way I'm going to do this is quite revolutionary, I'm sure you will agree. I'm going to read ideas off my phone. So first up, let's talk about the strategy. Let's talk about how I think you should start your game of Civ 6's Gran Colombia and how really you're going to win. So the first thing to mention is that the bonus movement you get is really important. Now obviously it's important for things like, I don't know, wiping the floor with your enemies as the game progresses, but early on, remember it's for every single unit, and the unit that we need to remember here especially is the settler. Now land and cities in Civilization games have always been absolutely pivotal, and it's exactly the same here. I'm just jumping in from editing and you may be able to tell that I keep saying horsemen when I mean horses, but you might, you know, it's not that obvious. But as Gran Colombia, to be successful, you need a few things. You need horsemen, because you need to be able to build cavalry units, and although you will spawn near horsemen, the vast majority of the time my experiments showed, you need to try and get as many of them as you can. If you can get 2 sources of horsemen, you'll be able to get your cavalry units out even quicker. The other things you need as Gran Colombia in particular are things like banana, strategic resources like banana, because that's going to allow you to build plantations. Plantations give good hacienda bonuses later on in the game, so it's definitely worth making sure you get those resources. So I'm saying you need them. How do you get them? And how do you get things like iron if you can get to discover it early enough? Well, use your settlers to be aggressive. They get extra movement. The units escorting the settlers get extra movement, so be aggressive in your settling, make sure that you are aware of loyalty, but grab that land if you need it because it will definitely pay dividends later on in the game. The next point that is an absolute pillar stone of my strategy as Gran Colombia now is to start early with the expansion. Now, I'll tell you why I think this is important to mention, because I play a lot of Civ. I'm not terrible at the game, I mean I'm not the best player in the world, but I know what I'm doing, and even I find it easy enough to get caught up in the, oh, I'll just build another district, oh, I'll just build another wonder, instead of going for the military stuff. Instead of building a big army and taking it to one of my enemies, I would rather sometimes just build districts, and it doesn't work. It's not the best way to play as Gran Colombia. There's 2 main reasons for this. The first reason is that you are strong. You are already strong militarily, especially with cavalry as Gran Colombia, so you kind of wasted an opportunity. With your Comandante Generals, you get bonus combat strength, so you're going to be at an advantage compared to the average player, and also you get extra movement. Even before you get access to your arrows, you're still going to be relatively strong compared to everybody else, so it's important to make them bonuses count. The second reason why for my strategy I think it's absolutely vital to be aggressive early on and try and take somebody out relatively early is that you don't want to get to the point where you've unlocked your arrows and have to build that from scratch. What you want is already to have a military there. You want to have built a big bulk of your cavalry as horsemen, and then upgraded them to corsairs, and then upgraded them to llaneros, because that way they will be even stronger. Now, as I'm sure you'll know if you've watched my breakdown of Gran Colombia, the llanero has brilliant bonuses. It's got great adjacency bonuses, and it's a really strong unit. But it could be even stronger. If you start early on, if you attack city-states early on with cavalry, with horsemen, and you attack other civ with horsemen and corsairs, it'll be even stronger. So do make sure you're pushing Gran Colombia's aggressive expansion style early on in the game. So a small tip for people that maybe don't know this, I'm sure most of you do, but when you're going from horsemen to corsairs and then corsairs to llaneros, make sure you're using your policy cards to upgrade cheaper, because money and resources are not easy to come by in this game. So when you are upgrading, try and have access to the Professional Army Civic. That will give you 50% gold off your upgrades. So instead of costing 160 gold to upgrade, for example, it might cost 80. And also retinues to 50% resources. So instead of costing 10 iron to upgrade something or something like that, it will only cost 5. So do make use of them, because then you can upgrade things basically for half price. I wanted to give an example then of kind of what I'm talking about and how this strategy could be used in a game. Now, there's a few things. This is only King, so on harder difficulties you'll need to do things a little bit differently, But the principle here is get an army out relatively quickly and try and stun your enemy. For new players on King and below, this will work really well. On Emperor and above, it'll be more difficult, but let's just see what happens. Another thing to note is that I'm only on about turn 67 or 68 here, but I am on online speed, so this is very much a quicker game. Just take from it the kind of principles on why I think Gran Colombia is a really good civ. So the whole strategy I'll be using going forward as Gran Colombia, especially in this sort of time period in the game, is splitting my force largely into two areas. So first of all, I'm going to have sort of an advanced guard, really making use of those movement points. I'm going to use cavalry like this, and I'm going to push them beyond the city I'm trying to capture. And I'm going to do that because we shall see this now. Move, cavalry. Move. So this is the reason why I'm using it as an advanced guard, to basically push back and clean up any Aztec forces which might come in and support the city. This means that basically the city is cut off from the rest of the empire, and if you can get at least 4 horsemen doing this, especially on King and below, they will not be able to reinforce the city. And now what that allows is for my heavy chariots and just other kind of cavalry units, but more importantly, my catapults, as we'll see in a second, to come in and range attack the city. The catapults, the siege units, are the big force which are going to allow me to take the city, but there's going to be no reinforcements because I'm going to use the rest of my army, especially my horsemen with the stupid amounts of movement points, to cut off any reinforcements that might be coming. So there are a couple of other things I need to mention about this strategy. Usually, obviously, send in melee units before your catapults. Don't just leave them undefended for somebody else to attack. It's just that the Aztecs were pretty clearly crushed at this point. And the second thing is, on harder difficulties, for example, Deity, this might not work so well. I'd definitely be intrigued to know how it works, but I've used it on Emperor to sweep up units and it works well. I've obviously utilised it here on King, but that's not particularly difficult. So if you just want a fun experience though, try this strategy because it is just so fun to shock an enemy and really just overrun them. So that is my overall strategy, but I do have some more specific tips which I think will be useful and definitely are a bit different for Gran Colombia. So the first one is, and I've paused this frame here, is that as you can see, I've dragged this cavalry unit over here, and what I'm doing is I'm using it as a scout. You can use them as scouts. You can see what the enemy's got. So before I send in the whole force and before I try and rush the city, kind of enclose it and then bring in the siege units, I will use things like this as a scout because you can dart in, see what's going on, and you can dart to safety. And I think that is a very useful thing to bear in mind. This next tip, and it sounds quite obvious, but although I am kind of saying just how great the cavalry are, do not forget you need siege units. You're going to need a lot of siege units, especially as the game progresses and especially on harder difficulties to take cities down, so don't over-rely on these units. They're great for sweeping other units up, and they're great once you've got the walls down, but do make sure you have enough siege units with you, and hopefully you'll be fine. Now the next tip I have is that although Comandante Generals are really good, do not hoard them. Now they all give bonus combat strength and bonus movement exactly the same throughout every era, but they have different retirement charges. It's very easy just not to use them retirement charges. Realistically, how many Comandante Generals do you need at one point? Maybe you'll need 2 or 3, but if you've got one with a good retirement bonus, I'd suggest just using it. Don't hoard them, don't be scared of using those retirement bonuses because they are massive. So the final little note I have for Gran Colombia, and this is not sort of militarily, but remember when I said grab that land earlier on, and hopefully you've grabbed more land from civilizations as you've gone on. Remember as you go just to plan the haciendas out. City planning really helped me take my game up and get better at it, and especially with the plantations. Read into the adjacency bonuses, look at where you've got plantations and where it's maybe recommending you to build haciendas. Read through the adjacency bonuses for the haciendas and then plan it out. Take a little bit of time to plan it out because it will massively help you and give you really nice bonuses. The bonus food production and housing you will get from planning stuff out is definitely worth it. Okay, so that is it for my brief guide on Gran Colombia, but what do you think? What would you do as Gran Colombia? What tips do you have for people? Let me know down in the comments and I'll be sure to talk to you about them. If you want to see me do more videos like this, then obviously subscribe to the channel for more content. Maybe check out some of the stuff we've been doing previously. I like to bring a bit of history to a lot of the videos, so if you go and check out something like my Gran Colombia breakdown, you'll probably learn something about Simon Bolivar and his brief civilization. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed, then go ahead and share it with a friend because it's the best gift they will ever get. Probably. And also remember to like this video because that would help me out immensely. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Alex and I will see you in another video soon.